is Ashley, and I'm from group number 6. Group number 6 includes Mackenzie, Kelda, Alex, and myself. So group number 6, we decided to choose the topic number 1, which is how ethics influences what a candidate tells a prospective employer and what an employer can legally ask a candidate during a job interview. So during this presentation, we're going to present different case studies that represent different types of discrimination that can come about during the job interview process and candidate selection process. So some of the topics that we're going to cover are age, race, and gender discrimination and how to avoid it. So for my topic, I'm going to be focusing on a case study that represents age discrimination. A national food and restaurant chain named Ruby Tuesdays was involved in a lawsuit against a candidate, a past potential candidate for a job interview, and it was a discrimination lawsuit. And there was an older gentleman that applied for the general manager position, and he had 20 years of food and beverage experience in the industry, and he was completely qualified for the position. However, it ended up that he was not chosen for the position, and when he asked the company for a reason behind their selection process, they told him that they're looking for an employee that can maximize longevity. And so basically that's flat out telling him the reason that he wasn't hired was because of his age, and that's not ethical to weed somebody out of the process based solely on their age alone. That is breaking federal law, and by refusing to hire a qualified applicant solely because you're discriminating against their age. So the end result of this lawsuit was the man, he won $45,000. He was awarded for the settlement due to the violation of the Age Discrimination Act. And the best practice that we would like to share is that hiring managers need to base their decisions on the qualifying factors and qualifications of the applicant, not based on any age discrimination or any other type of discrimination or stereotypes. So I hope that I shared some useful information with you. And
hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Kelda Hansen. Today we are going to be discussing how ethics influences what candidates tell prospective employers at job interviews and questions that the employer can legally ask the candidate. We will be looking at the interview process in regards to discrimination and ethics. And so while technically there are no illegal questions, there are certainly questions to avoid, and what is illegal is basing your hiring decision on anything other than the applicant's qualifications for the job. So for this reason, most managers would avoid asking any questions that don't pertain to those qualifications and skills, and they avoid any problems. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits employment discrimination based on race, color, sex, and national origin. It also mandates that job requirements be uniformly and consistently applied to persons of all races and colors, so everyone with the skills for a job can apply and be considered for employment. It could be also considered discrimination if a company has requirements for educational certificates or degrees that are non-essential to the job. So even though the requirement may be consistently applied, if the requirement does not have anything to do with the job, it could potentially be discriminatory and cause problems for a company. As a candidate for a job, this could be something you ask about in an interview. Why do they have this particular requirement, and also why you would be a good fit for the job and what skills you have and why you think the degree or certificate is unnecessary for that job. An example of this, there was a case brought against the retail store Target alleging discrimination in their background checking policy. It was argued that the background checks unfairly discriminated against African American and Latino applicants. The company settled the suit and agreed to pay $3.74 million and review their hiring practices. As a prospective employee at an interview, you will want to present the interviewer with only information that highlights your abilities and your qualifications for the job you are applying for. You do not need to provide personal information regarding your race, color, national origin, or birthplace. Interviewers are not allowed to ask these questions. If you are in an interview and you are asked about these questions outright, understand that you do not have to answer them and let the interviewer know that you are uncomfortable with the questions. Most professionals know this and would not ask these questions directly. It's always important to keep all conversations at an interview on a professional level for both the interviewer and the candidate. So making small talk about where a person grew up, or when they learned to speak English, or where their parents immigrants, or maybe does all their family live in this country, could all be interpreted by someone as discriminatory questions when they might mean them as harmless small talk and making conversation. So as a candidate, if you are being asked these questions, even if it seems unrelated to your interview, remember you are not required to provide the information, and you can politely decline and refocus back to the qualifications and things about the actual job. If you feel that you have been discriminated against during an interview, it is best to make notes immediately after the interview, get the interviewer's name, their department, and the name of their supervisor. Make a note of any questions you felt were inappropriate, be specific, and then follow up with the interviewer's supervisor. If you decide to proceed further, you will want to have documentation for why you felt the interview was discriminatory, and that will be your proof, whatever it is that you keep notes on. So for the same reason, it's also important for the interviewer to keep notes, and if they're questioned at a later date, they will want to have notes about the hiring process and the reasons they have for rejecting or selecting their employees. So with that said, let's head over to Ashley and see what she's got for us.
The U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission defines sex or gender-based discrimination as treating someone such as an employee or applicant unfavorably because of that person's sex or gender. One prominent example is during the interview process when interviewing a female candidate, asking her if she has kids or is planning to have kids. This is not an okay question to ask and puts the candidate and the company in a bad situation. If the candidate answers truthfully and is planning to have kids, the interviewer could see that as a factor to pass her over, as he sees risk for her to need time off. If she is passed over for the position, she could argue that she was discriminated against for being a woman. Employers must be careful with any interview questions that would put emphasis on gender of the applicant. This puts them at risk for unethical decisions and legal trouble.
Hi, my name is Mackenzie, and today I'm going to be explaining what you can do to avoid employment discrimination. So first, it begins with the hiring process. It's very important that you adopt the right anti-discriminatory policies and procedures. Following up with this, you as an employer need to make it very important to your company that you are training all employees or managers on how to conduct themselves when doing interviews. This will not only make them more comfortable, but also prevent any slurs or words or phrases that could be put out as discrimination. It will help you to stay out of court and your employees to stay hired. Also, be sure that you are establishing cultural expectations and norms within your business. This will help to set boundaries and keep everybody accountable for themselves as individuals and make it so everybody's under the same roof, and not a free-for-all where they can say and do what they want. This is very important and should be taken into consideration for every business. So recently in Marysville, Washington, a lady who was working at Jersey Mike's found out that she was pregnant. She told the manager, and the manager responded by saying that they didn't have time for her to be taking off maternity leave and that it wasn't going to work out. So she now has lawyers involved, and it's a big case that's going on. And the owner of Jersey Mike's said that he no longer works with that manager. He is fired, and he's very sorry, and he offered the lady her job back, but she didn't want it. So that just is an example of a discrimination case and what happens, and the importance of business and conducting proper measures for that. Another thing is to make sure that you are responding to employee complaints. If you simply just ignore a complaint, the employee can take that as, oh, my employer doesn't care, so I need to do something about that. And then that's going to be on you for not taking the measures of what should have been done. So be sure that you are listening to all of your employees and taking procedures if anything needs to be done, because if you do not, it will be on you. The last one is going to be to make sure you as an employee are sticking up for yourself. If something happens that you feel is not right or is discrimination towards you or anybody else, you need to speak up. It's just as bad to not say anything as it happening, so don't be silent. We as Team 6 hope that by breaking down race, age, and sex discrimination helped you to see how ethics influences what an employee tells a prospective employer at a job interview, and also the questions that can be asked by the employer legally. Thank you for watching.